Hello, good morning class. So this is your science teacher, Montana Bernardo. So last time we discussed all about the fertilization. So again class, what is fertilization? Okay, so fertilization refers to the fusion of the egg or the ovum and the sperm cells forming a zygote and usually takes place in the upper third of the fallopian tubes. Okay? So this time we will going to discuss all about the DNA and its replication. So let us proceed to our discussion. Okay, so let us first define what is DNA class. Deoxyribonucleic acid, or what we call the DNA, carries the genetic information of an organism. It plays a vital role in the transfer of genetic material from parents to offspring. Okay, so DNA, ito daw ay nasaan? Okay, ito daw ay nasa mga organism. Ano, ito yung mga tagapagdala ng information sa isang organism. So, malaki yung ginagampanan niya, class. Ano? Kasi, itong DNA na ito ay nasa magulang ninyo at naipapasa ng inyong mga magulang sa anak. Okay? So, in eukaryotic organisms, no, kapag sinabi nating eukaryotic organisms, meaning yung organisms ay has through or contain through nucleus. So, most DNA is found in the nucleus, although a small amount of it is also found in the mitochondrium. So, yung isa daw ay makikita dun sa nucleus, which is the control center of the cell, at yung iba naman, yung maliliit na part noong DNA ay makikita sa mitochondria, which is also known as the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, so next class, DNA codes for genes, which are segments of a DNA molecule that transmits hereditary information. Each gene contains instructions for making proteins in the cell. Okay, ito daw DNA na ito ay merong mga code na sinusunod. Okay, so alam natin na yung DNA molecule, ayan, nagtatransmit siya ng mga hereditary information. Ibig sabihin ng hereditary, namamana. Kaya, yung mga magulang ninyo, yung mga traits ng mga magulang ninyo, pwedeng maipasa dun sa mga anak, no? And, DNA controls protein synthesis, the process by which proteins are formed from amino acids. Okay, so yung DNA na yon, yung mga code ng genes, meron silang mga protein. Ano? Proteins make up parts of the structures of organisms and enzymes, important for chemical reactions and body processes. Ultimately, the traits of an organisms are determined by their proteins, which in turn have been coded by their DNA. Kaya yung DNA, alam natin na yung DNA, this is the double helix structure. Ano? Without the DNA, protein synthesis will not take place. So, hindi siya mabubuo. Okay? So, lagi nating tatandaan na DNA is a double helix structure. Okay? Okay, so next class, the DNA is a complex molecule made up of subunits called nucleotides. So, each nucleotide consists of 3 components. So, we have here 3 components. Number 1, a 5-carbon sugar molecule, which is deoxyribose. So, ibig sabihin, yung deoxyribose, yung kanyang structure ay merong 5 carbon, okay, sugar molecule, and a phosphate group and a nitrogenous base. Okay? The second one is a phosphate group, and the third is the nitrogenous base. There are 4 nitrogenous bases that compose DNA nucleotides. So, ito yung gagawin nating code mamaya. Ano? Cytosine, or the symbol for cytosine is C, capital C. For thymine is capital letter T. For guanine is capital letter G. And adenine is capital letter A. Okay. Cytosine and thymine belong to a class of organic molecules called pyrimidines, while guanine and adenine are purines. Okay. Okay class, so when we say pyrimidines, this is a colorless crystalline compound with basic properties. So ibig sabihin itong cytosine and thymine are colorless compound. Now, how about this guanine and adenine, which is purines? Okay, kapag naman sinabi nating purine class, this is also a colorless compound, but it forms a uric acid on oxidation. So, pareho lang silang colorless crystalline. Ang pinagkaiba nga lang itong si purines ay it forms uric acid. Okay? Okay, so next class, the DNA has two strands or a double helix structure that resembles a twisted ladder. As you can see class, makikita natin yung DNA, di ba siya ay twisted ladder, And the sides of the ladder correspond to the alternating sugar-phosphate backbone. The rungs on the ladder contain the pair of nitrogenous bases. In a DNA molecule, there are two complementary base pairs. Okay, ito yung mamaya gagawin natin. Lagi niyong tatandaan itong base pairs pagdating sa DNA. Si adenine ay para kay thymine, while cytosine pairs with guanine. Okay? Each base pair is held together by a weak hydrogen bond. Okay? So mamaya makikita natin kung paano siya ginagawa. Okay? So tandaan natin si adenine ay pairs with thymine and cytosine pairs with guanine. Okay? Next, let us proceed to the RNA molecule and its structure. So, structure muna ni RNA. So, just like the DNA, the ribonucleic acid or RNA is a complex molecule that consists of nucleotides, a sugar, a phosphate group, and an organic nitrogenous base. However, RNA or ribonucleic acid has the sugar ribose. Okay, both DNA and RNA contain the same base except for one. So in RNA class, yung thymine po is substituted by uracil. Di ba kanina sa DNA, si thymine ay kanino ipinapares? Kay adenine. Now, dito sa RNA, sa substitute natin yung kapares ni thymine. So thymine is for uracil in RNA. The RNA is also single-stranded, while the DNA is a double-stranded. The role of RNA is to transfer the coded genes in the DNA from the nucleus to the ribosomes, small granular structures wherein protein synthesis takes place. In order to create the needed proteins, RNA molecules are important in synthesizing protein molecules needed by the cells. Okay. So, yung kanyang RNA molecules ay single helix structure lamang. Unlike dun sa DNA na double-stranded. Meron din siyang nucleobases. Meron din siyang helix of sugar phosphates. Pareho sila ni DNA. Okay? Okay, so now let us proceed to the types of RNA. So there are three types of RNA which play an important role in protein synthesis. These are the messenger RNA or the mRNA, transfer RNA or tRNA, and the ribosomal RNA or rRNA. So the mRNA transcribes the genetic information from the DNA into a form that can be read and used to make proteins, and it carries genetic information from the nucleus to the cytoplasm of the cell. So, ang gawain ni mRNA or ni messenger RNA ay tagapaghatid ng genetic information papunta kay DNA. So, ano namang ginagawa ni DNA? Binabasa ni DNA ito para ito ay magamit para makagawa ng panibagong proteins. Tapos, yung proteins na yon ay dadalhin papunta kay nucleus at papunta naman ito kay cytoplasm. So, yung cytoplasm, yung jelly-like structure, ng cell. Okay, how about the tRNA? Transports specific amino acids to the ribosomes. Tagapagdala naman ito. That correspond to each 3 nucleotide codon of rRNA. The amino acids in the ribosomes are then joined together in proper order to make a specific amino acid sequences specified by the mRNA. Ayan, so ang gagawin naman ni tRNA ay dadalhin niya doon sa specific amino acids papunta doon sa ribosomes. And then after that, yung amino acids in the ribosomes ay sasama na para siya ay makagawa naman ng amino acid. Okay, next, how about the rRNA? It is the structural component of ribosomes. It directs the translation of mRNA into proteins. Ito naman ay translate ang ginagawa. Anong ina-translate nito? Yung mga proteins. Yan. So, yan yung gawain ni nung tatlo, ni mRNA, ni tRNA, at ni rRNA. Now, let us go back to the DNA. DNA replication na tayo. So, prior to the cell division, the cell make a copy of its DNA through replication. Yan. So, ano ang ginagawa kapag cell division? So, kinakopy nito yung DNA, para mag-replicate. So, this process is necessary so that after cell division, each cell will have an exact copy of genetic material. So, eksakto, magagaya niya yung genetic info at malilipat na ng panibago, makokopya niya. So, the replication is described as semi-conservative since each new cell contains one original strand, yung isa ay original strand, and one newly synthesized strand. Okay? Ang tawag naman dun sa isa ay newly synthesized strand. So, the original strand of DNA acts as a template to direct the synthesis of the new DNA complementary strand. So, ibig sabihin, yung original, yung unang strand. And then, after nun, gagayahin na yung isa para siya ay maging form a new DNA complementary strand. Okay? Okay, so this is the DNA replication class. This is from parent. And then this strand is the parental strand na tinatawag. And yung nasa tulo ay tinatawag na daughter strands. Kasi yung hereditary information na ay naipasa ng parent from offspring. Kaya ang tawag na sa kanya dito sa dulo ay yung daughter strands. Okay, so prior to the cell division, the cell make a copy of its DNA through replication. In prokaryotes, DNA replication happens in the cytoplasm. Yung eukaryotes, diba, saan nangyayari yung kanyang replication? Sa nucleus. While dito naman sa prokaryotes, yung DNA niya ay nagre-replicate sa cytoplasm. So, several enzymes and proteins are involved in the DNA replication. So, the replication process can be summarized as follows. So, number 1, so DNA replication begins when the helicase or an enzyme unwinds the double helix of the DNA. So, the two strands separate. Ayan, nagsaseparate yung dalawang strands, breaking the weak hydrogen bonds between complementary base sequences. Yung complementary base sequences na yun, yung adenine, thymine, sa cytosine, guanine. With the help of small proteins called single-strand binding proteins, the unwound two strands are kept apart to expose the bases. So, each strand serves as the template that will be used to synthesize the new strand. Ayan. So, ito yung magiging panibagong template. So, number 2, the DNA polymerase adds nucleotides in a 5'. So, ang tawag doon sa nasa baba at nasa taas na number 5' to 3' direction. So, one strand of the DNA is in a 5' to 3' direction. This strand is called the leading strand. So, ang tawag po doon sa 5' to 3' na yon ay leading strand. And DNA polymerase can add nucleotides to this strand continuously. So, kapag ang nakatapat sa taas ay, halimbawa ay 5', of course, sa baba ay magiging 3' na yon. Okay? Okay, so this is the leading strand, yung binanggit kanina, the 3' and the 5'. Now, primer ang tawag dyan, kaya siya ay tinawag na 5' and 3'. The next is the DNA polymerase. Ayan. So, this is important in synthesizing the proteins. And this is the Okazaki fragment. Kung mapapansin ninyo, para siyang zipper. This is the helicase. Ayan. And then this is the primase. Ayan. para din siyang primer, yung nasa una. But this is the premise, yung pangalawa na, and then this is the lagging strand, yung nasa dulo. Okay? Number 3, the other strand of the DNA is positioned in a 3' to 5' direction, so this strand is called the lagging strand. So despite this orientation, DNA polymerase still needs to add nucleotides in a 5' to 3' direction. So to make this possible, short DNA fragments called Okazaki fragments are created from the lagging strand. So kaya siya ay meron tayong short fragments of DNA. Ayan, so tinatawag yun na Okazaki fragments. The replication of DNA strand is made possible with the help of an enzyme called RNA primase, which adds RNA primer on specific locations of the lagging strand. And then number 4, the DNA ligase is an enzyme responsible for sealing fragments. Ito na yung taga-seal, into one long continuous strand in one of the strands of the DNA. So, ibig sabihin, wala nang susunod. After the addition of new DNA, the strands automatically wind themselves. So, nag-automatic yon na nag-wind yung kanila, yung mga DNA. Okay? Okay, class. So, this time, I will show you kung paano gumawa ng complementary base sequences. So, let us have an example here. Okay, class. So, this is an example of the complementary base sequences. Lagi muna nating tatandaan yung base pairing pagdating sa DNA. So, adenine is for thymine. And cytosine is for guanine. Ito lagi yung base pair. Adenine, thymine, cytosine for guanine naman. Okay. So, let us have an example here. Okay. So, we have 5' ACT, TGA, CAT, TCC, ACC 3'. Okay. Hanapin natin yung complementary base niya. Okay. So, 5' is 3'. So, adenine is thymine. Dito ay guanine. Here is adenine. Next is adenine again. Cytosine. Thymine. Then, next is guanine. Base pair ng adenine, thymine. Base pair ng thymine, adenine. Okay, adenine. For cytosine is guanine. Okay, guanine ulit. For adenine is thymine. For cytosine is guanine and guanine. And then, for the last, we have 5'. So, ganyan lang kasimple. Basta lagi nyo lang tatandaan yung base pair nung dalawa. Okay, so after the discussion class, what have you learned? Okay, so we learned that DNA and RNA are perhaps the most important molecules in cell biology, responsible for the storage and reading of genetic information that underpins all life. Kaya napakahalaga ng RNA at ng DNA dahil kung wala sila, hindi tayo nag-exist. Okay, class? So if you have any questions or clarifications, kindly ask me. So that's it for now and goodbye, class!